For a week now, the Lee County Sheriff's Office has stuck to this statement that deputies followed policy when they grouped Yanko Romero and Brandt Diaz in the same cell. LCSO cited the Florida model jail standards. So I printed out those standards and I read all 105 pages. But I'm no expert, so I asked someone who is to read along with me. When the Department of Justice needed an expert to investigate how police responded to the Uvalde, Texas school shooting, the feds called retired police chief Kristen Zeman. She's an expert in law enforcement policy and procedure. That's why I asked her to help me make sense of this. The beating of this man, Brandt Diaz, inside the Lee County Jail, and the sheriff's office saying it followed policy. LCSO said, quote, "These standards and policies resulted in increased monitoring for these inmates, which allowed the deputies to respond timely and effectively to remove the suspect and render medical assistance to the inmate victim."
Did they follow policy? If we're looking at the policy, the way I see it kind of clearly is no.
The pairing of Diaz, in custody for auto theft, burglary, and larceny, nonviolent crimes, and Yanko Romero, under arrest for murder, deputies say resulted in this: Diaz bloody and bruised, beaten almost to death. Romero's booking report makes it clear deputies knew he was a person of interest in a separate murder up in Michigan, and his common-law wife told investigators he has a history of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
He was charged with murder, he was a suspect in another homicide, and he had a documented history of mental illness and erratic behavior. And in contrast, Diaz, who was incarcerated for nonviolent charges, you're looking at these from a corrections best practice standpoint. These two individuals appear to be a mismatched pairing in a shared cell.
Zeman pointed to Section 7.4 of the Florida Model Jail Standards.
That standard, inmates with mental illness, as in this case, like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, they fall under the special needs designation. And so it is the jail staff's responsibility to provide duty of care and reasonable protection for the inmates. So this does highlight a potential breakdown.
Section 6.12 says each inmate should be classified based on medical history. 6.13, each inmate should be classified, quote, to provide reasonable protection of all inmates.
Was his violent potential and mental health status fully assessed and considered? And was it shared? So, in placing him, as an inmate, was his background shared with the jail staff, so they could make the appropriate decision on where to house him. So there was a disconnect somewhere in my professional estimation, but I'm not sure where that breakdown occurred.
When we sent an email asking about these sections of the Florida Model Jail Standards, LCSO declined to comment any further. In this original statement, LCSO also referenced their own policies. We've requested a copy of those. We have yet to receive it. The Sheriff's Office did say it is conducting an investigation. The Diaz family and their attorney have promised to take this fight, quote, to the end. Back to you.